We moved from the East Coast, from Foggia in January up to Marcianise. It was just north of Naples, and we were going to cover the Anzio landings. So we did, and we covered Anzio the first day it went in, and in January of 44. Well, I was commanding 145 Squadron when we were out there, come to think of it. So I had become a squadron leader by then too, and I commanded a squadron in 33 and commanded one in 601 Squadron, and then became squadron leader with 145 Squadron. And that's the one we took to cover Anzio. And February comes along, February the 20th, and I come home one day, and I had shot down an FW-190 just outside of Roma, as I remember. Just as soon as that ammunition hit him, he bailed out. So he was landing on our side, so we didn't bother him. He was landing on our side of the lines. I don't know why that 109 was by himself, stooging around there like that. Anyway, he found out. We were still at Anzio, come to think of it, and I had the crash there at Anzio. I landed in hospital for 4 months with a broken knee. My undercarriage didn't stay down. The lights showed that they were showed green, that they were down, and both wheels were down and in place, and the left wheel wasn't. I went to go around again, and I shouldn't have. If I had realized that left wheel wasn't underneath, I should have just let her stay down. But I went to go around again, and about 50 feet while she spun in on me. Couldn't take it. I didn't have flying speed anymore. That's what happens when you don't have flying speed. So landed in hospital, and I was in hospital for 4 months, and we finally got to bending the knee and start itching to get back into combat. Somebody thought I was crazy, but that was the only way I could see it, you know. And lo and behold, comes June, and birthday, and another birthday, and then just about that time, I'm posted to take over 417 Squadron, Canadian Squadron, which was in the same wing all the time, had been ever since El Alamein had been together. 4 squadrons, 92, 601, 145, and 417, and we started dive bombing. My first target was just a little northeast of Florence, a big old red barn. First bomb I ever dropped, smashed that barn to kindling. I remember my wingman telling me he was looking at the red barn, and pretty soon it just splattered all over the horizon. A New Yorker was my wingman that day. He was in the RCAF too. So one fellow was from Green Bay, actually. One from Cleveland. A couple of them from Cleveland, come to think of it, that I knew in the RCAF. And then one fellow I knew quite well. I met him later in Europe too, as a wing commander, and he was attending Princeton University when he went up and joined the RCAF. Had quite a few crashes shortly after I took over. Nobody had done any amount of dive bombing. The Spitfire was a maneuverable aircraft. You could, from the ideal altitude was anywhere from 7,500 to 8,000 sort of. Going to a vertical dive drop your bomb at 1500 and pull out. And always do that parallel to the line, so when you're pulling out, you're coming over your own lines. By that time, it had developed to the point where they had former fighter pilots up there at forward control, and they were designating targets, and they'd ask us, can you see that so and so at designation so and so, and if we saw the target, they'd say go down on it. Yeah, you go out there, and sometimes you'd have to wait for a target for a little while. The best way was to fly over the bomb line at vertical at 90 degrees, and then turn around and come back. And when you came back, why then come to our side of the bomb line, and then approach it another time, and then by then they usually had a target for you. That's what cab rank was all about. You waited your turn, and as soon as they finished their run, why you went down. You were usually in formations of either 4 or 6, never more than 6 in a flight. So you went down and dive bombed your target, and evidently we were doing pretty good, because they liked the way we were doing it. So we kept at it for a while, and moved over to the Adriatic side again for change. And on one occasion, dive bombed both ends of a tunnel and caught the train in the tunnel. And then railroad yards outside of Bologna was one of the main targets, and heavily guarded by flak, of course. And so until November, we kept dive bombing mostly, and occasionally we went out and strafed, some dive bombed and then strafed. And sometimes strafed a little bit and then dive bomb. Yeah, it was almost got to the point where we could see the war ending before very long. We had pretty far up Italy. Bologna is not too far from the northern frontier of Italy. So, of course, then some of us signed up to. If they needed, we'd go to the Pacific. Well, November 44, I came back, and then I enjoyed a big party at one of the friends' homes down here on the Harding Road, and then went back, reassigned to Britain, and then into combat again. Had a chance to do a reconnaissance of Hamburg, and then saw later that day a Canadian bomber pilot came along, and he wanted to see what damage they had done at the submarine pens in Hamburg. And they had dropped a 22,000-pounder right between two pens, and it had demolished both pens and both submarines. What was there to say? If Hitler had seen them, he'd probably have croaked right there. So that was worth seeing, you know. That was the following day. The war ended. But I didn't record any of the kills in the log. Somehow that was a bit distasteful to me to record them. So I didn't do it. A lot of them did, but I thought I don't have to. Sometimes that scorekeeping made a person a bit foolhardy in what he was going to be doing. So, well, the pilot officer's second lieutenant equivalent, the flying officer was a first lieutenant equivalent, flight lieutenant was the captain equivalent, and the squadron leader was a major equivalent. I had promised I'd visit the family of a friend of mine who got shot down in Italy, who got killed in Italy, I should say. Lance Wade, he was another American. He was with the Squadron. He was like an older brother when I first went to Squadron, you know. And he'd coach along and do this and don't do that sort of thing. And we just talk once in a while between us, and after the war he was going to be a sheriff in his county, I was going to be a sheriff in Gogebi County, and we were going to fly back and forth to visit each other occasionally. I knew he had flown in Arizona, in the Tucson area. He and another fellow who joined up with him actually. So I flew to Tucson, and sure enough, I found a newspaper man there who knew Lance Wade, and the other fellow who got killed in Western Desert early on, who had flown with Lance, and so I found out where his folks were from. They were just below Jacksonville in East Texas, in Pine Country, at Walker, Texas. Reclaw was the name of the town. Walker, I call it first, but it's Walker turned backwards, the letters, Reclaw. Anyway, I met Lance's folks out there, and father, mother, a sister and a brother. And they had gotten his logbook already now, all his, but his body had not been returned yet. So this was in February of 46. But then we wrote to each other, the daughter and I wrote to each other for a while afterwards, and she notified me when I was up in Alaska later that summer that they had sent Lance's body back and buried in their local cemetery at home. So that worked out okay.